Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. My name is Elias. I'll be doing the consultation with you today. Um, One thing that I like to go over before we get started with anything, it's on the form and all that. But we do record our consultation. It's just so that way we have them available in case you need to see anything, any information that's in there that you need. Um, so is that all that's good with you and everything?
Yes. No
Okay.
problem.
Okie dokie. Well, then we can just get started right away. And then why don't you tell me who we're talking about today, what you're trying to work on, and then what your goals
Sure. So my dog is Cachao. He's over here.
are.
He's a 2-year-old Havanese, a little over two. He turned two in December. He actually attended daycare at your facility back in 2021, I think it was, just for a
Okay.
few days. You guys were pretty far from the old location, so it was kind of rough to get there.
Yeah.
And part originally why I wanted him to go to daycare was just to get to be around other dogs because we got him through when the pandemic was at its height. He didn't really socialize a lot and all that stuff. But then we stopped. So anyway, we did like little, like a short 6-day puppy lessons when he was still very young, just to kind of learn how to communicate with him. So that went all well. That's how, taught him sit down and all the basic stuff.
Mhm.
And then later on, sometime last year, I did work with a trainer one-on-one. We only did about 3 or 4 lessons. And at that time, I was trying to work on walking him on a leash because it was getting a little tough. He gets really, excited. He doesn't really, listen to me.
Mhm.
Um, and that got better. He actually got us started on the prong collar, which I think you guys also might use sometimes. So
Yeah.
Cachao is kind of used to that, and he did pretty well with that. The walk-ins got a lot better after that. However, we were gone for 3 months in December, January, February. We were out of the country, staying away from the Chicago winter. And now that
Mhm.
we came back, it looks like maybe his leash walking has regressed a little bit.
Mhm.
So he's not, this is him.
Okay. Yeah. The little
He's
guy.
so that's really the thing right now, and he can be a little bit reactive to either other dogs or sometimes like to certain he gets a little nervous, maybe like he reacts to loud noises. He seems to be very sensitive to like if a loud car and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Um. So right now, are you still using the prong collar, or what do you use to walk him?
Yeah, we kept using it. But then he got when we were away, we were kind of not using it because he had like his own backyard. Like the setup was just different. So
Yeah.
I thought, maybe there's been a lot of changes for him. So right now we did try, like last week we went over the weekend, like let's just take a walk, maybe like half a mile or something. And he was
Yeah.
very like almost he didn't know what it was, so
Uh-huh.
it seemed like he needed an intro again to the prong collar. So right now I'm only using the slip-on lead, and
Mhm.
that seems to be okay, but he still tries to pull, the normal stuff.
Okay. When you guys came back to Chicago, did you guys come back to the same house or are you in a
Yeah,
new
same house.
Okay. Okie dokie. Yeah, so right off the bat, if he's taken a break from the phone collar a little bit, like you're right in thinking that the structure can get a little lost for him.
Hmm.
Just because dogs thrive on the consistency of things. So
Right.
if he's not doing it for a while and then you start doing it again, now he's thinking like, well, for these past couple months, I've had these rules. Now there's these new rules. So he's kind of deciding between the two of like, well, what can I do? What can't I do? So when there's confusion on what the rules are basically and like how consequences are handled, then you can notice some of that nervousness or like unsure of what to do with the collar, unsure of how to respond to the corrections. Um, just because they don't necessarily work well with gray areas. Everything needs to be very black and white. But there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a quick fix in general. So not too much to worry about there, but that's most likely what you're noticing right now, trying to go back into that training mode with the child. Um, when you say he's reactive, like, can you describe like certain moments where he's been reactive? Like, is it with dogs, people, just noises?
Yeah. Well, since we've been back, I haven't really seen other dogs, maybe because it was a little cold the last few days.
Mhm.
But yeah, it depends on what dog too. Like there are certain dogs that trigger a reaction that you might think, like I really hesitate to use aggressive with dogs because I feel like sometimes
Mhm.
we just don't understand. But his reaction is almost like he barks definitely, and it's almost he wants to lunge at them, but I never
Mhm.
really allow him to get close enough to figure out what he's actually going to do. But that's
Yeah.
usually like he wants to go after them, whether it's playful. I don't. It doesn't look playful, but
Mhm.
that's usually how he like. That's his reaction. If it's a big dog, he seems to be afraid, but he also is almost like pissed off, like just barking and
Mhm.
barking really loud. With people is different. With people is like he wants to go with them, but he starts doing this with his paws, like he wants to play with them. So
Yeah.
other dogs usually have more of a negative reaction in him, I would say.
Okay. Um, yeah, there could be like without necessarily seeing the situation or knowing what he's going to do, there could be a few reasons why those things are happening. One is that sometimes it's the other dog that's kind of bringing it out of him a little bit more. If the other dog is like one being reactive, having tension, or just kind of coming towards him with that energy, it can cause him to then be reactive. Another thing is that sometimes there can be tension based on the leash. So sometimes owners will pull on the leash ahead of time, knowing that their dog's going to go and do something. But
Yeah.
in a sense, that kind of amps up their dog more because now they're creating tension, and then the other dog is kind of feeling that tension, like, why are you tense? Should I be tense?
Mhm.
And then there's that reaction there.
Yeah.
So with that, it does sound like just general reactivity. It doesn't sound like anything, I guess, like out of the ordinary for that type of behavior. So that shouldn't be too much of a difficult thing to address either. It'll be more just letting him know that he doesn't need to be concerned with this dog at this moment.
Mhm.
So we wouldn't necessarily make him be friends with every dog or completely change his personality. But just like certain things you don't have to care about. You don't
Yeah.
have to care about that other dog. But with the walking, when he's walking at your side, is he pulling constantly, or is he just pulling in these certain moments when he's like getting excited?
You know what? At first, when we first got back, he was pulling constantly. Now that I've been kind of using almost exclusively the slip-on lead, and I just
Mhm.
kind of correct him a little bit, he's been
Yeah,
doing better. Certain moments, like if we cross the street, for some reason, it's almost like he wants to walk away from me to the side.
yeah.
I don't know why. But when we're walking on the sidewalk, like little corrections are, he's been doing mostly okay, better definitely than when we got back.
Okay. The street thing could just be him being a little bit nervous because it's like a
Mhm.
different terrain, different setting. Um, but do you, um, and I can explain this too, but do you know why like the slip lead is working, why the prong collar is working? Like, do you know what is kind of communicating to him in that sense?
Well, I mean, I guess I just guess it's like rather, like a command, you're hoping that he understands your command, but an actual physical, you're actually physically doing something to him. I think he can understand that better.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're 100% right. That's why we use certain tools like these. We would call them like aversives. So it's adding in that, like you said, physical way of communication that dogs better understand because that's how another dog is going to communicate to
Mhm.
another dog. So from a very young age, they're already learning this form of communication with their mom. There's tons of videos on YouTube of specifically, one that stands out is like a mountain queen retriever goes into a playpen with all of her puppies. They're being way too much for her. They're not giving her any space. So then she decides to do a correctional nip at one of them. And then they all back up and relax. They're like, okay, mom means business right now. So we're going to wait for her to chill out. And then when she is comfortable with it, she then allows them to all come up, greet her, eat, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then this moves forward into their adult life too, where if one dog doesn't like that another dog is maybe being in their face too much,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to go for some type of correctional nip. And that's how they're basically saying, like, I don't like what you're doing. You need to stop doing it. So these tools basically are taking that same mentality and just applying it in different ways, such as the prong collar, e-collar, slip lead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we would also call this like pressure training because we're adding pressure on the neck and causing them to make a decision to basically release the pressure.
Yeah.
So it's very good that the child already has some familiarity with this
Mm-hmm.
because the more practice they have with it, the easier it is for them to understand that they're the ones that are really in control of what's
Yeah.
happening. If they're, for example, walking away from you, pressure is turning on with the leash when you're pulling them forward, and then when they finally move with the pressure, then everything relaxes and it's loose.
Mm-hmm.
So having this background of already doing some of this is going to make it very easy to move forward with the training as
Mm-hmm.
well. Again, just having that head start. With something like the slip lead, the prong collar, and like the e-collar, it kind of goes in tiers as far as like what the ceiling is for
Okay.
what each of those things can provide you. So with the slip lead, yes, it's introducing that pressure, but there's also a limitation on it based on your personal strength, how
Mm-hmm.
well Cachao is actually understanding like the correction there.
Mm-hmm.
For some dogs, the correction may be too strong for some reason, and it can be hard to get right, or it can not be strong enough, and then Cachao might be trying to like just choke himself out there.
Yeah.
So there's a certain limit to how reliable that form is. Then moving up to the prong collar, which is what I would call like a step above the slip lead, it's because it's adding in that pressure of tightening, but now it's also mimicking kind of a dog bite with the prongs of the collar, adding in a stronger correction when you're going to be doing like normal pulling and everything. So this is a lot better than the slip lead as far as giving you more room to work with, but there's still a few limitations that we don't necessarily want to only rely on the prong collar for. One thing is that accidents happen. You can drop the leash, the prong collar can snap, and when this stuff happens, we value our recall command a lot. So it's kind of hard to do recall with the prong collar if we no longer have physical control of it. Another thing is that it can add sometimes unnecessary confrontation, and this depends on the dog, but it's very easy for them to see the leash going from the prong collar to you, and then they're seeing this happen, and they may want to redirect at the leash or redirect at you because sometimes as we're doing the training, frustration can build, and the dog might be like, "Well, I don't like what's happening. This leash is having control of me. I want to get rid of this leash." So I might redirect at the leash. Or worst case scenario, if you're the closest thing to him, he might be like, "If you're the one doing this, I'm going to redirect at you now." So, not that we can't work through that, but it requires a lot of extra effort on the owner's end to where not everybody necessarily wants to be like a full-on dog trainer and do all this like extra stuff. So that's the few limitations with that. And then of course, it's going to be different between everybody. Like the way that I might use a prong collar is going to be different than the way that you use it and anyone else in your family. So then that brings us to the e-collar, which is our preferred method for adult dogs. We still use prong collars like along with the e-collar just for even more control depending on the owner's preference or situation. But we at least make sure that all the commands are reliable with the e-collar for those scenarios that I kind of brought up where it's going to be better in the long run to have that recall at a distance, or
Yeah.
to be able to hand someone else the remote and everything's still the same for Cachao. There's no
Mhm.
difference in feel. Um, any questions so far with uh, how I explained that?
No, no, it all makes sense. I actually like earlier, sometime last year, I did buy like a e-collar. I mean, it was pretty cheap, but I did
Yeah.
feel bad about the shock part.
Yeah.
So I actually never like the one that I got, like it has two little things that you put on. I never used them. I only relied on the vibration and the beep that has a beep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I used it right, but
Uh-huh.
he definitely kind of developed not a fear, because he's funny. Like if I show him the prong collar, he associated that with walks that he would
Yeah.
actually get excited, so I would put
Yeah.
and he was fine with the e-collar. Once if I took it out, he would just like look at it like, oh, I know I hate that thing, but I won't run away. And then I
Yeah.
would put it on, and then I would just use the beep when he was doing something I didn't want him to do. But again, I probably didn't go about it, the right way.
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say that like you necessarily affected the training in the long run at all. So a lot of owners will grab an e-collar just to try it out, and usually that sort of thing happens. Just because people can do it in different ways, but the way we do it is very specific to where we want Cachao to understand, as I mentioned earlier, that he's the one that's in control of everything.
Mm.
So it's kind of in a way making it more on him than like us trying to like for lack of a better word, like quote unquote like scare him with it.
Mhm.
It's more just like, okay, this is the consequence if I do this, so I'm gonna do this. um but do you remember what like brand or what type of e-collar that you purchased?
I think I said like Pat or Pat or something like that.
Okay.
Something like that.
And then do you remember like um how the levels on it worked? Was it like 1 to 10 or like 1 to something?
Yes, I never really messed with the levels very much. I really just relied on the fact that I knew it was beeping, so I
Yeah.
would click that. And then the vibration, I think it did go up to 10, like it was a little stronger.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it goes up to 10.
Okay. So one thing is that the type of e-colors that we use here are a little bit more of like a professional grade.
Hmm.
Um, so they're a little bit more expensive, but at the same time, we don't want to run into issues where the collar is going to be like hurting the dog or going to
Yeah.
be something where it's like we're only using maybe one function of the collar or something. We
Hmm.
want to be able to um, trust this tool because this is the thing that people usually use to get to that off leash area. So we
Hmm.
really want to make sure that it's like doing its job. Um, so the ones that we use here, our boss Jesse has been using for like 10 years. Um, I'm pretty sure they use them for like police dogs and everything. The brand is Dogtra. And then for our collars, they go from levels 0 to 127.
Mm.
So where let's say the collar that you have goes from 1 to 10, their 10 is the same as our 127. We just
Oh,
have a larger range in between to find exactly where Cachao is going to be responding well.
okay.
So, for example, on your collar, let's say that like 6 is too much, but 4 is too little. He's not listening anymore. Now
Mhm.
you're kind of stuck a little bit. With this, it's like, okay, maybe 50 is too much, maybe 40 is too low. Well, now we have 10 numbers even in between there.
I see.
Um, so we're able to kind of find exactly what's working for the dog and just see how Cachao is responding to everything a lot easier. Um, as far as the way that the e-collar technology works, and this may be similar to your collar as well. Um, it have you ever been to a physical therapist's office?
Yes.
Have they ever used the TENS unit on you where they put the patches? Like,
No.
okay, have you seen that before? Like,
Yeah. Like it's like a little, I don't want to call it shock, but it's like something
Yeah,
that stimulates your muscle.
yeah, it
Yeah.
feels like your muscle like tightens kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that technology there is the same technology that's in the e-collars that we use,
Mm,
where it's not like you said sending like electricity like through the body or anything. It's more just stimulating that specific area.
hmm hmm Okay.
And the whole goal of it is that it's mimicking that sensation the same way of a dog collar of like a dog biters.
hmm
Even though it will never get to the same degree as like a dog bite,
Right.
that's like a little more intense.
hmm
But it's the same idea there. And then with the way that we do the e-collar training here is very similar to how a physical therapist would use it in their office, where we're seeing how the child's responding, and if it's a little too high, the same way a person would let the doctor know, like, okay, you need to turn it down. We would then turn it down. If it's too low, then turn it up. And we just kind of go by what Cachao is feeling. We're not necessarily as focused on the specific number.
Okay.
And then our collars also do have a vibrate function, which sometimes people can use in different creative ways, but we don't necessarily want to rely on the vibrate function because it's inconsistent. So
Mm,
we're throwing him off with the vibrate thing. Yeah, we're getting his attention, but it's not necessarily clear to him that a correction is happening. It's more just
mm,
he's like, "What was that?" Whereas
mhm,
if we get him familiar with the corrections and moving with the pressure, now it's the same mentality as the prong collar or the slip lead, where it's basically just having that ability to add that physical pressure just from wherever you are. Um,
Okay.
and then with this as well, as we start to do the training, initially he's probably going to be the same way, where he is a little bit nervous or
hmm
apprehensive of the collar. But as he starts getting more familiar with it, as he starts to understand the rules and everything and like the structure of it, and then as he starts getting more experience of positive things happening with the collar on, like going to the park and being able to run around and not worry about like um, having to necessarily stay by you with the leash or something, or going on more walks because the walks are easier now. Once he gets those positive experiences mixed in with it, it makes the e-collar seem more neutral to him because now the same way you notice with the prong collar, he's like, well, yeah, the e-collar adds in like corrections and stuff, and I have to listen when it's on. But at the same time, now that means we're going to the park. Now that means we're walking. Now that means I'm doing all this stuff. So exposure over time and then keeping everything consistent is going to help ease him into that more
hmm
where he's just more relaxed in general. So,
Yeah. Okay.
any questions with that so far?
No, not with that. I mean, I think that's pretty clear in terms of like the methods of the different tools. But you
Yeah,
did talk about recall at some point, and
yeah,
recall, I would say that he was never great with it. He's still not
yeah.
great. And I feel like now it's like, even when we go on a walk, like I said,
Mhm.
let's go out for a walk, like he stays at the top of the stairs and I have to call him multiple times. So recall is definitely something that I'm hoping that
Yeah,
improves.
yeah, absolutely. The two main things we go over in every single program um, is the heel command and the recall
Mhm.
command. Just because one, you're going to be walking your dog every day, it's probably the easiest way you'll do the practice with the
Yeah.
e-collar. And then two, the recall command is just necessary because you never know what's going to happen, and
Yes.
you always need to be able to get your dog back. Everything else is just like extra,
Mhm.
but those are the two commands. No matter what you do, that's like the core thing that will get done right away.
Perfect.
So with the uh, first, I'll go over a little bit the heel command and then the recall command.
hmm
Um, we teach the heel command first in every single program, just because that is our way of teaching him basically how the e-collar is working.
Okay.
So it's a very straightforward, very visual way for him to start to understand how to move with the pressure, the same
hmm
way he would with the front collar and the slip lead. Um, the proper positioning for our heel, which is very strict, is Cachao needs to be on your left side, right shoulder in line with your left leg. He shouldn't fall behind, shouldn't go in front of
Mm-hmm.
you, go to your right side, anything like that. And then when you come to a stop, he should go into an automatic sit next to you
Mm-hmm.
until you're ready to release him from the command, and then he can have his free time, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So that's a lot for him to focus on because he's got to manage, is mom going faster? Is mom slowing down? Are we stopping? Are we turning? And sometimes what happens with that is this other stuff on the side, like a little bit of reactivity.
Mm-hmm.
We find that even without addressing that specifically, that will improve just because he's so busy on this
Mm-hmm.
command that he doesn't have time to maybe worry about this dog that's across the street, or he
Yeah.
doesn't have time to stay back and try and bark at this dog because he's got to keep up with you. Like if you're walking,
Mm-hmm.
he's got to be walking. So a lot of that stuff usually improves on its own before we even necessarily target it once we get the heel command in. As far as the reactivity specifically, that is also something that becomes very easy to address with the e-collar, because now that we have the e-collar as a way to communicate basically the word no to him, whereas we
Mm-hmm.
use treats and everything to say yes. Now, if he's having this reactive moment, or we notice that he's starting to get tense as he's building, we can add in that correction there to basically say, don't look at that dog. Don't worry about that dog right now. Like, I know you're getting tense, but this is
Mm-hmm.
not the correct behavior. And then as you're more consistent with that as well, he's going to be thinking, well, it's not worth it for me to bark at this dog and freak out because I know that the eco is going to happen if I have a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So then
Mm-hmm.
he's more just like, if I'm just not concerned with that dog, then whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
then doing that over and over again is how he's building up that behavior of I basically
Okay.
there's obviously a little bit more like in-depth stuff with that as we're specifically working with him and you're seeing everything. But roughly that's the idea of how we would address the reactivity and then how the heel command is going to be.
Okay.
With the recall command, that one is the main command basically that we always try and give the tools for the owner to get that off leash reliable. Just
Mm-hmm.
because even if you're not even trying to have him as like an off leash type of dog, anything can happen. You need to have that command off leash.
Yes. Yeah.
So with that, we have like a specific process of going from using a long leash and then doing the commands and stuff in an enclosed environment where he's off leash, but you're still getting that practice in
Mm-hmm.
kind of a safer area, and then finally getting to that off leash level. With this command, not only should Cachao come to you, but we also incorporate an auto sit into it where once he gets to you, he needs to sit down and stay by you until you release him. Just because we've seen too many times where an owner may have a really good recall, but right when their dog gets to them, they think, okay, I did the recall, and they run back to whatever they're doing.
Oh, I see.
So, especially if it's something like, at the park, we've seen there could be a dog fight, and the one dog may come back to their owner, but then just go back into the fight right after that. So, we like to incorporate that auto sit just to keep it to where you come by me and you also stay by me until we're good.
Okay.
But with that, a lot of this, like I said earlier, should be very easy for him to pick up with his background with the tongue collar. As far as those two commands, did you have any questions or any specifics that you were wondering about?
I think he's in general, he seems to be the type of dog that needs a slow intro to things, and when he went to daycare at first, he did the 3-day evaluation, and and I thought that was a great way to introduce him to the space and the people. For this time, because that was a while ago, and now you guys are a new facility. I asked I forget who helped me with the questions, and she said a 3-day evaluation is not needed, but I guess I'm just trying to make sure that, that he can take advantage of the training from day one. And if he's too, nervous, too distracted, would it make sense to maybe do a couple of daycare visits first? I don't know if you have any, suggestions about that.
Yeah. You are like completely right in the mentality of thinking that yes, this is a new space. It's kind of like we have new staff, there's new dogs, there's so um, it is going to be something that he's not right away going to be comfortable with. Um, so if you wanted to do daycare days ahead of that, you can, and it would only serve to benefit. At the same time, I would say that you don't necessarily have to, just
Mhm.
because um, what type of program are you interested? You're interested in maybe in more of like a board and train or daycare and train. It sounds like.
Yeah, daycare and train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, just because when he's doing that, he's basically um gonna be doing like the eval process at the beginning, anyways. Just
Mm,
because the first day he gets here, we're usually not doing training right off the bat. We're more um, getting him comfortable with everything. So we may have him kind of introduced to some dogs. We may have him
mhm,
do some treadmill. We may have him just walk around the facility. If we introduce the e-collar, it's only like introductory stuff. So we still ease them into it. And even if he is a little bit nervous or unsure of the environment, that won't necessarily affect the training just because we still are able to make everything happen as
mhm.
he moves through the flow of the day. If he's more comfortable, that's nice, but it's not necessarily going to impact the final outcome of everything.
Okay. Okay.
So it's more personal preference up to you.
Mm,
If you would like him to have those more introductory days, then you're more than welcome to, and it would not hurt anything.
mhm.
Um, but if not, then it's the end goal or end outcome is still going to be the same.
Okay.
He just might be a little more nervous on the first day than if he was
Mhm.
already coming in.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense or answer your
Yeah.
question?
Yes,
Okay.
it does. Thank you.
But that being said, you said you were interested more in like a daycare and train. Did you have
Yeah.
like a specific program you were looking at, or
Yeah, so I thought the 5 day one would be, a good way. Cause like I said, I mean, I feel like he does have foundation and
yeah,
once he picks up things, he's pretty quick. So more of this, like, I got the poor guy went through, traveling. We were in Nicaragua, so we would
yeah,
travel all the way there, in December. And then we just came back. He seemed to like remember the house, no problem, but just like the
right,
walks and everything has been kind of like new to him again. Now he's feeling more normal. But so yeah, to answer your question, the 5 day program is the one that I was thinking about for daycare and train.
yeah. Um, so for the 5 day, that can work. I would say that I think it's 1.5 hours of in-person follow-up after the program that you get.
Hmm.
Um, so with that, your main two commands you're trying to focus on are heal and recall, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Um, the 5 day, yeah, I would definitely say that you can reach those goals with that program.
Mhm.
The way that that works is we would recommend having is like I would say like first 3 days of the program, like within the same week, um,
Hmm.
just because we want to have him spend as much time here right away as possible, just
Yeah.
to get a good baseline started off. If we space it out too much at the beginning, it's going to be hard for him to retain certain things.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't want him, struggling to catch up if it's been like a week break or
Right. Yeah. No, it
something.
makes sense.
And then with that as well, um, I'm sure you've seen it like through reading through the program and everything, but you do get the hour and a half video of us doing the first time commands with him with the short leash and everything.
Hmm.
And even though heal and recall are your main things, because he's going to have like a lot of time here with us throughout the day, and we're able to get multiple sessions in and everything, we still fit in all the other commands. So you'll see him do heal, recall, sit, down, stay, place, uh, and then yeah, that's all six. Um, and that'll all be in the video as well for you to look over. You can try
Hmm.
different things at home, and then you get 1.5 hours of in-person follow-up after. And the way that that works is you schedule that however you would like. It's very flexible. You basically just say like, okay, maybe when you pick them up, you want to do like a half hour or an hour right away to go over like heel or something like that.
Hmm.
Then you can do that, and then the rest of your time you can save it for, maybe something comes up down the road that you're wanting help with, or maybe you rather wait till it's a nice day to do like a session in the park. Um, these are very like up to you, kind of.
Okay.
So it's really just like how you decide to space that out.
Hmm.
And then with this program, we'll be able to spend some time working on the reactivity as well, with the heel command and everything like that. Um, that is most likely going to be like the first thing we'll do in
Hmm.
person, just because the reactivity is not necessarily something we can go over in the training video because he might just not do it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to plan that out.
Mhm.
But I think that should be fine. And then with the weather getting nicer, it'll be nice to have him on some training walks, and we could see how he is like outside of everything too.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so that can work. And then um, as far as the prong collar, were you still wanting him to use that like in addition to the e-collar, or did you have any thoughts on
Well, I think if the, how can I put it? You said like the prong collar, has its limits. Like I
it?
really was only using it as a way to communicate with him. But if the
Yeah.
e-collar becomes kind of like my main way of communicating with him, I don't think I would use the prong collar very much.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. I just usually ask because sometimes owners like having the prong collar still,
Mm.
just a personal preference. For him, since he's a smaller dog, I wouldn't say it's necessarily needed or
Mhm.
recommended, just because you're not really going to have to like pull him back like
Yeah.
that. It'll be fine. Um, but yeah, all of that sounds good to me. And then for the socialization stuff, obviously he'll be here at daycare, so he'll be taking part in all the other activities. So we'll be able to get some socialization time in here with him as well. Um, it's not necessarily going to be the main focus because we only have 5 days with him. So most of that is going to be training, and then we'll give him time in the playpen to kind of practice that. Uh, but that will still be a part of his day, even uh, just like a little bit each day. Um,
Yeah, that's cool. Back in the day when he went a couple times, I think I was pretty focused on like, oh, I want him, like I was used to, like, you see a little dog, they always play
mhm.
with other dogs, and he really was not interested. But
Yeah.
they told me at the time, like a lot of times that's us projecting, what we want to see in the
Uh-huh.
dog. So ultimately, as long I guess I don't expect him to like play, but as
Mhm.
long as he just doesn't mind the other dogs, like you were saying, that works for me. He's
Yeah.
like, I forget who said, like, dogs are just like people. There are certain dogs that trigger a certain reaction from him, and then there are others that, when he was down in Nicaragua, my brother has a small dog. She's a little
Mhm.
smaller than him, and maybe because she's female too, but they became like best friends. Like they would
Yeah.
play, no problem all day long. But he doesn't do that with every dog. Like that's the exception.
Yeah. Yeah. That all of that is like correct. He's gonna like whatever dogs he likes. The only thing we can do is just basically let him know that if you don't like a dog, it doesn't mean you have to attack them if
Yeah.
you don't like them.
Yeah.
So that stuff will be happening in the playpen as well. Again, it'll
Mhm.
be very easy for us to have them in group just because we have the e-collar. So now there's a tool
Yeah.
there, so that way we don't have to worry about if he does like have a bad moment with the dog, then
Mhm.
it's right away we cut it off.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, but any other questions or anything else you feel like I didn't go over involving like this program?
No, I mean, I think the website itself is pretty good at explaining everything. You did a great job explaining the tools. I mean, I'm excited for him to just, I like what you said about teaching him that he's basically in control. So I like I
Mhm.
like that idea.
Yeah.
But no, I think the only other thing would be like, I don't know how available it is, like, how soon could he start? I do have some stuff at the end of the month. So, but
Yeah.
I think the sooner the better for me, my preference, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right now we don't really have too many in facility training dogs, like doing the board and train or daycare and train at the moment. So he should be able to start up pretty quick. The specific dates and everything, you can go over with our kennel manager, Katie.
Okay.
I'm gonna have her send you a follow-up email after the consultation, where she'll have the specific program you're looking at, payment plan stuff if you're needing to do that, and then the collar that we would recommend for him as well.
Okay.
Briefly on the collar, the one that we would recommend right now, and we can always like change it based on like, if for some reason it's like too much or too little. I would say the Dogtra 280C. You don't have to remember that or anything right now. That'll be in the email.
Okay.
And then if you'd like as well, because we do retail for Dogtra, we can have it available here for him when he starts his program, for the same price as you would buy it online. So that's another personal preference thing.
Okay.
Just giving you that option. And then with that, that's one of the smaller collars, just because it sounds like he's pretty sensitive to the pressure. So this one is like obviously cheaper than one of the more intense collars, but it also still has the ability to get everything that we need out of it.
Okay.
And then for that email, what you can do is just go ahead and go back and forth with her, involving the dates and everything you'd like to do. If there's any questions that come up involving the training or any specifics with the program, she can answer them, or if it's more trainer specific, then she can relay that to myself or Enrique, and then we can help discuss whatever you'd like if there's anything that you might have forgot or something.
Cool.
And then as far as anything else with that, I think that's about it for that email. Did you have any other questions or comments?
No. I think you covered everything. I appreciate you breaking down, everything with me. And yeah, like I said, I think the way that you guys run the programs are a good fit for him. I hope, at least.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do great. It sounds like he's already familiar with it, just getting back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
But perfect. I'll go ahead keeping out for that email that Katie's going to be sending you after this, and then I look forward to seeing Cachao come here.
All right. Thank you so much, Elias. I was going to call you Elias. Are you Latino by chance?
I am. A lot of people don't say my name right, so I just default to Elias. So.
Do you prefer Elias or no?
I prefer it, but sometimes people will say, I've heard things like, some people will say like Elliot or Ellis, and I'm just like, whatever, okay.
Gotcha. So, okay.
But yeah, but I appreciate it. I appreciate you noticing that.
All righty. I'll look forward to getting the email then, and then I'll work with Katie on setting everything up.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, you have a nice day.
You too. Thank you so much.